Hi YouTube, hi VC, it's Rob here with another video, and it's been a while since I made a video. If you didn't realise, I'd fractured my pelvis outside my house on Saturday morning 5 weeks ago. I do live on a bit of a hill. It'd been raining, it was slippy, and my legs went and fell on my left side, fractured my pelvis. Very painful. Managed to get in the house. My daughter wasn't in. And I can remember just thinking, how serious is this? And I quickly realised it was pretty serious. So, phoned for an ambulance, which took about 90 minutes to get here. And gas and air. Got in the hospital. I've been in there for a few weeks, and thankfully now I'm home, recovering. Doctors are pleased with my progress, so hopefully within a couple of weeks I can get back to some sort of normality, because if you've ever fractured your pelvis, you're very reliant on everybody, doctors and nurses, etc. You literally cannot do anything for yourself. So thankfully I'm through the worst of it. Obviously, while I was in hospital, the events in the Ukraine began to unfold, so quickly stopped feeling sorry for myself, trying to put myself in the position of the people in the Ukraine, either staying to fight the Russian army or fleeing, the women and children fleeing. There's already been far too many casualties on both sides, and I'm just hoping that we can get some sort of a ceasefire and it can end, because it's not looking like that at the moment. I don't want it to be going on for years and years like the Russians in Syria. So, you know, I'm not here to talk about the war in Ukraine. I wanted to touch on it because it's affecting everyone in the world, really. When you've got social media, 24-hour news, literally you can watch it all the time, and everyone becomes an expert very quickly in current affairs. I'd like to thank the people in the vinyl community who you know, give me support on Instagram as well. Randall Weaver, I want to especially thank Randy. He's been sending me messages, keeping my spirits up, and has succeeded. Thanks Randy. And also Rachel, the Music Man, James Griffiths, Graham Allen. There's been, you know, quite a few people who've sent me the best wishes. So I'm here, I'm back, and I've been buying records, listening to records at this time is probably a good way of sort of escaping the troubles of the world. And I've bought some new records, and I've not actually done a haul video for a number of months, so I've got plenty of stuff to show. So the first record I want to show is the new album by Johnny Marr, Fever Dreams Parts 1 to 4. And this came out a couple of weeks ago. It's a double album. There's 16 original songs by Johnny Marr. You get the lyrics. I'll show you the discs. There's the label. So since Johnny Marr sort of left the Smiths in, when would it be? 88. He's worked with so many different artists. From the Pretenders, he was with the Cribs, Talking Heads. If you look on his profile, countless artists that he's worked with. I think he did a solo album, Johnny Marr and the Healers, maybe about 2004. But under his own name, he's I think this is his 4th album. And I've always kind of, even though they've been critically well received, something about his voice, and maybe the time wasn't right, and maybe the time is right now. I've got time on my hands to sort of listen to new releases, and I enjoyed listening to the Johnny Marr album. So decided to buy it. If I've got a slight criticism, I'd say there's 16 tracks on here. It's very accessible, maybe a little bit too accessible. I would maybe liked a few more maybe experimental tracks, but it's a solid 8 out of 10. Really good album, worth checking out. Fever Dreams parts 1 to 4 from Johnny Marr. Another album I picked up recently is Richard Ashcroft and Acoustic Hymns Volume 1. So Richard Ashcroft, of course, the songwriter and singer with The Verve. Nice gatefold there. And again, this has got this one's got 12 tracks on it, and it features a number of tracks from the album Urban Hymns, which was such a massive album in '97. Drugs Don't Work, Bittersweet Symphony, Sonnet, Lucky Man. But I've got quite a few Richard Ashcroft solo albums on CD, none on vinyl until I picked this up. And they're all very good. I think he's a bit underrated, Richard Ashcroft. A Song for the Lovers and Break the Night with Colour, 2 really good tracks on this album. So yeah, 12 tracks, worth picking up. Richard Ashcroft and Acoustic Hymns Volume 1. I was in Record Shop in Bolton, which is about 15 miles outside Manchester. Picked up David Bowie, the remixes. So this is a bootleg with 13 remixes. There's remixes of Sound and Vision, Let's Dance, This Is Not America, Hello Space Boy, Rebel Rebel, remixes by Left Field, Pet Shop Boys and Air, to name a few. So really pleased to have this in the collection. I'm listening to quite a bit of David Bowie recently. There's the label. As I say, it's a double album. Sounds pretty good. I think this came out in about 2017. What information I can find out about it. It was, there's 1,000 copies, so there's not that many floating around. But nice addition to the collection. David Bowie and the remixes. I've spoken a few times about how my son's got my Smiths albums. But there's a couple of Smiths albums, compilations, etc. that I've never actually had on vinyl. So decided to pick up the live album, Rank. So this came out, I think, about 87 maybe. On the gatefold, that's the GMX in Manchester. I've seen many bands over the years, particularly in the early 90s. So this comes with a nice inner, Morrissey there. And this has got nice orange label with the Smiths there. So there's a nice selection of tracks from the first 3 albums by the Smiths. The Queen is Dead, Panic, Ask, Boy with a Thorn in His Side, Cemetery Gates, Still Ill, Big Mouth Strikes Again. So yeah, nice OG copy of Rank by the Smiths. And I was certainly in a bit of a Smiths mood. So I picked up a copy of The World Won't Listen as well, which is another compilation. Came out in the sort of late 80s. Shakespeare's Sisters on here, There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, Shoplifters of the World Unite and Take Over. So it's in really good condition, nice inner as well, with the lyrics. And there's a label with the Smiths. So a couple of nice additions to my Smiths collection. I've also picked up a repress of Telling Stories by the Charlatans from '97. One of my favourite Charlatans albums. Nice gatefold. So you get the album And then you get a disc with B-sides and rarities. So there's one of the inners. And the Charlatans, pretty successful commercially, particularly in the 90s. And this album contains 4 singles, 3 of which were big hits: North Country Boy, One to Another, and How High. And the title track, Telling Stories, also a very good single. So from 97, the Charlatans and Telling Stories. I've got quite a bit of sort of post-punk. I've been listening to quite a bit of post-punk, and I was watching a documentary about the Gang of Four, and they were talking about an American group who I'd heard of, but I'd never actually listened to the music. And the band in question was Pylon, and this is their debut album, Gyrate. It came out in 1980. The debut album from the seminal post-punk legends Pylon, remastered from the original tapes, first repress since 1988. So as I say, this one came out in 1980, and it comes on very nice blue vinyl. So Pylon had they were together for a few years in the early 80s, and then they got back together again. Quite a few lineup changes, etc. Female vocalist Vanessa Hay, very much for me with a little bit of a Slits vibe, very sort of danceable as well. From Athens, Georgia, which is the home of the B-52s. A little bit of a B-52s vibe as well, and REM, big fans of Pylon. So certainly a group who you've not ever checked out, certainly worth listening to. So this is a debut album by Pylon. One of my favourite sort of bands of the 90s were the Inspiral Carpets, of course. So a band who come from Oldham, which is where I live. So the Inspirals are reissuing their 4 albums, starting off with Life and The Beast Inside. So this is the debut from 1990, which features the single This Is How It Feels. So there's Graham, who I went to school with, there's Clint and the singer Tom. So it comes with a nice inner. And it says gold vinyl, like a brownie gold. So this also contains the singles She Comes in the Fall and the great closing track, great live favourite, Sackville. But The Beast Inside's come out, was reissued on purple vinyl. I think that's 2-disc set. Revenge of the Goldfish and Devil Hopping are being reissued in April, just before Record Store Day. So I'll probably pick those up as well. But yeah, thought I'd add a really nice clean copy of Life, the Inspiral Carpets debut album. So I said I've been listening to quite a bit of sort of post-punk. And I discovered a band from the Netherlands, Amsterdam, that I'd never heard before, who formed in 1979, and the band are The X. So I picked up this album, 27 Passports, which came out in 2018. So again, a little bit of a Gang of Four vibe, a little bit maybe slightly with a bit of a jazz theme. It's just on black vinyl. But the X have been together, like I say, since 1979, and they've released coming up to 20 albums, I think. And they've had a lot of lineup changes. I think one of the guys is one of the original members. But a bit avant-garde in places, experimental, bit of Afro thrown in. Certainly worth checking out. And this also comes with a really nice booklet, 36-page booklet of sort of photographs, which are really interesting photographs. So again, a band maybe stream them, check them out. A band I've never heard of before. The X and the album 27 Passports. Here's a band from Leeds who just released this album just before I had my accident, and it's Yard Act, and the album's called The Overload. So this actually reached number 2 in the UK charts, and it's got a limited edition on green vinyl. So Yard Act from Leeds, again sort of with a bit of a post-punk vibe. Arctic Monkeys, Sleaford Mods, if you like those artists. A little bit of The Fall, quite sort of humorous lyrics, which are on that unreadable sheet. But yeah, a band who are touring at the moment, but doing very small venues, because, you know, 6 months ago nobody had really heard of Yard Act, but hopefully with the pandemic on the wane, towards the end of the year maybe a larger tour. So certainly a band I recommend checking out is Yard Act and this album, The Overload. Here's an album that passed me by last year, and if I'd have took the time to listen to this album, because a lot of people were raving about it, but I just never got around to giving it a listen, and eventually when I did pick it up in the new year, discovered that it would have certainly made my top 5 best albums of 2021. So it's Dry Cleaning, this album's New Long Leg. So again, a post-punk vibe, female singer. I say singer, she's one of those sort of who sort of talks over a really good sound created by the bass and guitar. Certainly a little bit of maybe a Slits vibe again, but very good musicians. And this album was really well received by the critics. I didn't see many people in the VC talking about Dry Cleaning, but certainly an album worth checking out. I think the singer's called, I can't quite remember her name, something Shaw, but her lyrics are very random, very amusing, and they're a very interesting band, certainly worth checking out if you've never checked them out. So Dry Cleaning. Picked a 12-inch up by the Manchester band The Chameleons. This is from 1982, As High As You Can Go, with Pleasures and Pain and Paper Tigers on the flip side. And The Chameleons, you know, the records, you don't see them very often, so I saw this 12-inch. The Chameleons are from Middleton, which is not far from Oldham. There's an album here that I've been looking for since dinosaurs ruled the earth. It's the Armory Show, and this album is called Waiting for the Floods. So this album's from 1985, and I've been on the lookout for it for so long. I just never seem to see a copy of it. And the Armory Show feature Richard Jobson from the Skids and John McGeough, the guitarist from Magazine, and who else was you with? Susie and the Banshees. The Armory Show had no commercial success whatsoever. I knew I'd sort of find this album cheap. I don't go looking on Discogs. I prefer to find my records out in the wild, but it only cost me £2, so my patience was rewarded. Bit of a blast from the past here now with The Truth. So this album came out, I think, in '84, and The Truth were a mod band who I must have seen about 10 times between 1983 and 1985. Sort of a cross between the Jam and the Style Council. So obviously we used to go to the gigs on our scooters with our girlfriends, and it was such a great live band. And this came out in 84. Dennis Greaves, who was the singer with 9 Below Zero, is the guy behind The Truth. It's such a great live band. So this album is on IRS, and it to me it feels a little bit overproduced because I was so familiar with The Truth live. I was never a massive fan of the album, but when I saw it for a £5 in a charity shop. But while I've been off, I've actually been on Amazon and found this 3-set. It was only £7. A step in the right direction. So it's 2 live performances at the Marquee and live at the BBC, and also some studio tracks. They had a couple of hits, minor hits in 83 with Confusion Hits Us Every Time and A Step in the Right Direction. But yeah, very sort of fond memories. To think it's coming up to 40 years ago that I saw The Truth. You know, time certainly does fly, but for £7 it's certainly worth investigating on Amazon. Picked up this double album by Little Feat, Hoi Hoi. So this was only £6 for a double Little Feat album. And since I've sort of getting old and grey, sort of found that I quite like Little Feat. They had literally no success in the UK. Album sales, if you look, were very limited. So sort of when I was getting into music in the 80s, I'd never even heard of Little Feat. I think it's only sort of over the last 10 years that I've even become aware of them. They've had quite a few lineup changes. Actually, the musicians are, you know, second to none. I do have a copy of the Waiting for Columbus album on vinyl. I picked that up last year, and that sort of has been one of the sort of best live albums. And this album's got some tracks that didn't make it onto that album, plus a few other sort of different versions of different album mixes, etc. So it's not sort of essential, but I've got most of Little Feat's albums now. So when I saw this for £6, a bit of a no-brainer. So Hoi Hoi and Little Feat. Just a couple more to go here, and picked a copy of Cahoots by the band. So in a recent video, as he sent me those records, and he did send me a copy of the second band album. This is one that I picked up before Christmas. It's a budget from the 80s copy. And the album itself's from 71, and it's a pretty solid album. They're a group I'm really getting into. So obviously when Mazzy sent me that second album, I was delighted. But yeah, good strong album by the band. Picked up this 12-inch single of Cosmic Fringes by Paul Weller. So it's got a Pet Shop Boys 12-minute remix, and this is off the Fat Pop album, an album that I'm trying to get into enough to want to buy it, but this is probably my favourite track off the album. One thing I've been doing while I've been off is, because I've got so much spare time, I've been watching reaction videos of Americans who have never sort of heard the Jam before and Paul Weller live, and watching their reaction to Paul Weller and the Jam, sort of, because a lot of the Paul Weller music that's been released over the last 5 years I've not really been a huge fan of. But when you see the live performances he was doing on the Live Wood tour in the early 90s, just phenomenal. I just wish he'd get back to those heady days. But please have this in the collection. Paul Weller and Cosmic Fringes. And finally, an album that I picked up recently is TV21. So this is from, I think it's from 1980 or 81. And the album's called A Thin Red Line. So the name rang a bell. And there were so many sort of interesting sort of bands around in the early 80s who just didn't get the sort of commercial success they deserved because maybe sort of synth pop was becoming prevalent in the early 80s. So some sort of bands slipped through the net, and TV21 certainly come under that category. This album's produced by Ian Brody from the Lightning Seeds, and they actually, as I say, they're from Scotland. I think their final gig was supporting the Rolling Stones in Edinburgh in '82. So good way to go out. But if you see this album, TV21, I think it's the only album they did. Certainly worth investigating. It was pretty cheap. So a few records that I picked up. It's nice to get back into the swing of it. I did kind of promise that this year I'd try and do a video every week. So obviously with my accident, I've fallen a little bit behind. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks, I'll upload a few more videos. So thanks for watching. If you've got any comments about what I showed, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.